and Ms. Konishi is here. Our next order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from the January meeting. Does anyone have any objections?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second, so the meeting minutes have been approved. At this time, I'll turn it over to our city attorney to go ahead and open us up and give us instructions.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals. This is a board comprised of members of our community that are appointed by the City Commission. They're volunteer members. They do not receive compensation, and they are charged with hearing and deciding requests for variances from the city's land development code, and where granting such a variance would not be contrary to public interest or create an undue burden or hardship. The way the procedures work today, each applicant will be called forward. If you could state your name for the record and your address and give a brief description of what your request is for, the board will be able to ask any questions. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against a particular variance request, they'll be given an opportunity to do so as well. Staff will also be able to present any additional information to the board and answer any questions. The way the procedures will work today, anyone that comes forward and is wishing to speak today, I want to go ahead and swear you in. If you could stand at this time and raise your right hand if you're planning to speak before the board today. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Yeah. Thank you. Turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. So our first application is from Magnolia Montessori Academy. This is for a 2-foot variance to allow a maximum fence height of 8 feet in lieu of the 6-foot maximum height for fences within rear yards and interior side yards, and a 4-foot variance to allow a maximum fence height of 8 feet in lieu of the 4-foot maximum height for fences within front and side yards specified by section 4.4.3 of the city's land development code in order to construct an 8-foot high chain link fence around the perimeter of the property located at 815 South Central Avenue. Who is here to present on this?
Good morning, Matthew Lyons, Community and Economic Development. As you see at the bottom of the slide, staff is requesting a 1-month delay here. Basically, after the applicant submitted the variance, our recommendation, it was inconsistent with what they intended. So they are going to be revising the application to show the fence a little bit closer to the street than what they originally proposed there. I believe initially we were considering a 15-foot setback, but they're looking at maybe a 5-foot setback just because of the use, which is a former church. They're converting to a school there for the Magnolia Montessori School, and they need the grass area for playfield. So they will be coming back next month with a revised application, and we anticipate having a presentation then. So we would ask for a 1-month continuance.
Thank you. So the request is for a 1-month continuance. Do we have any motions for accepting the continuance?
Yeah, move to accept the continuance.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion to continue and a second. Next up is...
We have a vote on the motion?
I'm sorry. Yes, we can vote on it if we must. Mr. Miller.
Approved. Agree.
Thank you. Ms. Mayweather. Mr. Raschke.
Yes.
Ms. Cruz.
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer. I'm sorry, Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm having a day. And Eden Konishi approves. Thank you. Next up is... This is the Smith Barn project. The applicant name is John Cox. The request is requesting a variance for the height restrictions for residential accessory structures. It's a 10-foot height variance to allow for an accessory building with a mean roof height of 22.5 feet in lieu of the maximum height of 12.5 feet specified by Table 4.3-4 of the Land Development Code to allow for the construction of a new two-story barn and recreation building on the property located at 1111 East Highland Drive.
Good morning again, Matthew Lyons, Committee on Economic Development. This request, we actually did have a recommendation in the packet. However, last Thursday, we did receive a call from one of the neighbors and then the homeowner. It appears the zoning for, this is the Spring Oak subdivision south of Polk Parkway. Some of you may be familiar with, going back to the 1980s. The applicant, his property, the bulk of it is actually an area that was which intended to be pasture, that was never zoned or intended to be developed for housing. And he was wanting to put the pole barn there. His house is actually on a platted lot, so we didn't see any issue initially. But there was a restriction in going back to the 1980s. I believe limiting any outbuildings there to a stable for keeping of horses. I think 5 horses. And I think he will maybe have some horses, but he also maybe intends to store some equipment and a couple other things. But he's getting with the neighbors to clarify, what they believe would be allowed under that use there. So he's going to hopefully come to an agreement with them, and we'll come back next month with a recommendation. But we want him to work that out first in case there were any potential legal challenges, because otherwise there wouldn't be any point going forward if the neighbors were not going to, support it. So we were asking for a 1-month continuance again.
So we have another request for a delay. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. Mr. Miller?
Approved.
Ms. Mayweather?
Approved.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
And Ms. Konishi, yes. Okay, we're cruising right along here. Next up is 725 East Orange Street. It looks like this one is also a request for a month delay.
Yes, this is unusual that we have 3 delays in 1 month here. The issue with this request was actually with the advertisement. The setbacks specified were consistent with what was shown on the site plan. So we did meet with Mr. Boynton with the Lund's group last week. They're going to be revising the site plan and amending the application. So we'll come back next month with that, but we couldn't go forward because of that issue.
Understood. Another delay.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Mr. Miller?
Approved.
Ms. Mayweather?
Approved.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
And Ms. Konishi, yes. Okay, next up is Mr. Michael Mutz. Request of appeal to a determination made by the Director of Community and Economic Development pertaining to the termination of the legal non-conforming status of a fire damaged duplex in order to restore the structure back to a two-family use on the property located at 810/812 Park Hill Avenue. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Michael Mutz. I live at 836 Orange Park Avenue, 4 streets over from this. And I'm coming to request that we reverse the decision to that they ended of letting this be a legal non-conforming duplex for a couple reasons. First, thank you guys so much for caring for our city and sitting through these meetings to look over all the variances for everything. So the reason they decided to make the decision is the man who owned the home got a quote from an insurance agency that was above the 50% replacement of tearing the whole building down and replacing it. And he started a little bit of work and then he quit and listed the home for sales. So I'm a realtor and I like working on houses. So I saw the house and put in a bid to get it. And the main reason as it pertains to the city that I'm asking for a request is, according to subsection 13.32.5a, It says a structure is deemed to be destroyed should it be demolished or damaged by any means such that the repair or replacement would exceed 50% of the replacement cost of the structure utilized for non-conforming use. So in the city's determination, restoring it would have to be under $65,000, which I can do, including the work that the previous owner had already done and already paid the previous contractor. The contractor charged him for the demolition about $31,000. I had 3 contractors estimate what they would have charged for that. It was about $6,000 to $8,000, depending on the contractor. But I'm not even trying to argue taking away the $31,000. Even with that, my contractor can finish the rest of the project for about $26,000. So it would remain under what the city has deemed to be under $65,440, including the work that was already done. The second reason I'm asking for the request is the person who sold the house misled the people who were bidding on the property. In his public descriptions of the house, he said that this is a duplex and said it can be converted to a single-family home. And then in the private remarks that only realtors can see, they actually said it's zoned as a duplex, and you should just check with the city to make sure you can restore it that way. So I put in an escrow deposit. I had the bid that was the highest for the house. And after my money had already gone hard, the other realtor called me and said, hey, the city already made this determination, so you're going to have to go talk to them. So it would have cost me about $6,000 to walk away from the house at that time. So I figured I should come to the zoning, well, first work with the city, and then they deferred me to come here to work through that. So it would have been a pretty substantial loss for me at that time as well. But my request is, I'm not some random investor that lives out of state that doesn't care about the historic district. I live 4 streets over, absolutely love the South Lake Morton historic district. And a lot of my friends had moved into the historic district, which really put a love for me for older homes. And my wife really convincing me that she wanted to live there and work on our house. And I would love to restore this back to a duplex so that people who don't have the ability to, have not saved the money to be able to purchase a home and live in this community can come and still have the opportunity to live. Both small families, older people, younger people, so that they can fall in love with the culture and the history of the South Lake Morton district. So as quickly as possible, essentially my request is to allow it to remain non-conforming due to the fact that the work can be done under the city standards according to what would not have counted the property as destroyed.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the community here to speak about this? No. No. City
I'll make
comment?
my presentation if you'd like here.
I'm sorry?
I'll make my presentation.
Yes, please.
Okay. Just for some background here, subject property contains a 1-story duplex originally built in 1947. The lot is 90 by 131.7. And the duplex is approximately 1,636 square feet under roof and 1,220 square feet of living area split into 2 dwelling units. The dwelling unit addressed to 810 Park Hill Avenue, the larger unit, has 2 bedrooms and 1 bath with 830 square feet. And there's a smaller unit at 812 Park Hill with 1 bedroom, 1 bath. It's approximately 400 square feet. The property is currently zoned RA for single-family residential, located within the South Lake Morton Historic District. It's been zoned that since at least 1994, meaning that the duplex use was legal non-conforming until recently. When that zoning was applied, effectively, if the structure were ever destroyed or damaged to a certain threshold, it could not be reestablished as a duplex, and that's the issue before you here today. And what brings us here is last May, on May 5th, the subject property suffered a major fire. Started with an electrical fire in the larger bedroom of the two-bedroom unit there, 18 Park Hill, and resulted in substantial fire, water, and smoke damage to the dwelling. The smaller one-bedroom unit at 12 Park Hill was largely undamaged aside from minor smoke damage there. However, following the fire, the property was vacated due to the extent of the damage, which I'll show you some photos here shortly, which made the property as a whole uninhabitable. And this is a photo of the structure taken by the Lakeland Fire Department in the immediate aftermath of the fire. On the left is the larger two-bedroom unit where the fire started. And this is a view to a carport. You can see where the fire blew out. Smoke came out through the windows there. And this is the back side of the carport. This is a back deck area, a roof area that was damaged. And this is the smaller one-bedroom unit, which is on the right side before this is behind it. So the photos inside, I'll walk you through it. This is the living room, probably the least damaged room in the house. As you can see, heavy smoke damage from the fire, water damage there. This is the one of the bedrooms where the fire did not start, also heavy damage from the smoke and water there.
What was the cause of the fire?
I believe it was maybe a vacuum cleaner or something that they had some problems with, and I guess they left and it started when they were not there, but apparently a malfunctioning home appliance of some sort. And you can see here the fire damage in the bathroom. I believe this is the bedroom where the fire started. As you can see, quite substantial. And this is the kitchen area here.
So may I ask, prior to the fire, it was a 2-unit?
Yes, it was a duplex. So this was the larger two-bedroom, one-bath unit. The smaller 400 square foot one-bath unit was not really impacted by the fire, other than some smoke damage.
But it was still zoned as a single family? Or is
It was a duplex, so it was a non-conforming duplex.
It was zoned as a legal non-conforming use because as long as it continued to exist until this event triggered the termination of that. So that's the question here that you guys are charged with trying to figure out whether you agree or not agree with that. And this isn't, and just to give a little more context, this isn't typically a case that you see here because typically the board looks at requests for grants for variances. This is just an appeal from a decision of staff basically making the decision of the termination of a legal non-conforming use. And we don't typically see these. I think Matthew said that the last time we had one might have been 2007, Matthew?
Yeah, it's been about 14 years. They're pretty rare, and I'll go through your authority there to hear these type of appeals shortly.
I just wanted you to understand that's why you're seeing this is not a typical case that you would look at and say, okay, they're looking for 5 feet variant, anything like that. So.
And this is a view outside. There was a washer and dryer outside. You can see that was destroyed. The fire came out through there. So just to continue here, how we got where we are today. On July 1st of last year, The Building Inspection Division did receive a request for an interior demolition permit from True Builders Incorporated. That was the contractor, Herbert, the owner at the time, to basically do the initial demolition work and cleanup on the property there. Due to the extended damage, which we were aware of, and the non-conforming status, we advised the contractor that the structure may be deemed irreparable if the cost of repairs exceeded 50% of the replacement cost. And staff did request and subsequently received a copy of the adjuster's report for the loss. That was the report prepared for the insurance company that insured the property and paid out for the claim. And that was performed on behalf of Universal Property and Casualty. You have a copy in your recommendation. It's a 19-page detailed line-by-line estimate for the full cost to repair and restore the structure. That would basically be the basis for the claim, what the owner was entitled to under his policy for the damage that was sustained from the fire. And the report, which included overhead and profit, which would be charged by any contractor due to the complexity of the repairs and the extent of the loss, estimated the cost to restore it back to its pre-fire condition to be $77,000, $525.01. So in accordance with Section 13.3 of the Land Development Code, legal non-conforming uses may continue indefinitely until either the structure in which they are located is destroyed or the use itself is abandoned for a period of 365 consecutive days or longer. And destroyed is defined as should the structure either be entirely demolished or damaged by any means such that the repair or replacement would exceed 50% of the replacement cost of all structures used for the non-conforming use. And so to determine the replacement costs, we used what building inspection does when evaluating permits. They would use $80 a square foot for the structure as a whole. That includes the living area and the area under roof. So that would include the carport, porch cover, any other unheated areas like that. So we came up with $80 a square foot times 1,636 square feet. That works out to be $130,880. And based on the estimate and the adjuster's report, that means the cost of repairs was determined to be equal to 59.2% of the replacement cost. So on July 29th, we did send a letter to Amanda Davis with True Builders and Mr. Ronald Daly. He was the owner of record at the time and insured under the policy. And the letter, which you have a copy in your packet, addressed the legal non-conforming status of the use in respect to the damage from the fire. And due to the cost of repairs exceeding 50% of the replacement cost, in the letter, it was determined that the non-conforming use of the property as a duplex was determined to be terminated effective immediately. Mr. Daly did not contest staff's determination. I mean, he was not happy. It had been in a income-generating property for several years. He had too long time tenants there. He would have preferred to have repaired it, but he understood under the zoning why it could not be repaired. And ultimately, he decided to put the property on the market for sale in the fall because he could not restore it as a duplex. And on November 3rd, Mr. Mutz, the applicant before you here today, on behalf of MT Toll Investments, LLC, he purchased the property with the intent of restoring it to a duplex. So again, while we're here today, Mr. Mutz does request to appeal staff's determination that the legal non-conforming status of the duplex is terminated due to the cost of repairs exceeding 50% of the replacement cost. Mr. Mutz believes the structure can be restored to a habitable condition for much less than the estimate provided by the insurer. According to Mr. Mutz, True Builders billed Mr. Daly 5/11/55 for work performed to date. That pertains not just to the interior demolition, I think there's some maybe confusion here, but also the removal of all the fire damage materials and the mitigation of any fire, smoke, and water damage. When you have this type of loss, you have a lot of hazardous things you're exposed to. Of course, you have lead paint from the age of the structure, but you have all the carcinogens. So it's a very dirty, nasty job. It's not cheap. It's no way comparable at all to like a remodeling project. So the costs there, the tree builders did, based on our experience, is in line with what any other rehabilitation contractor like Serpro probably would have charged for the same type of work. And today, Mr. Mutz, he has spent $250 to hire an engineer to assess the roof trusses, which according to the engineer, they are in good condition. And Mr. Mutz, in the application, he did provide a one-page estimate from a remodeling contractor, which estimates the structure can be made habitable for $26,175. And I believe you have that in your packet. The power for ZBAA, as Ms. Sirianni explained, this is not a variance. This is a appeal to the board, basically asking you to overturn staff's determination that the use is terminated there. So the board is empowered to hear and decide these types of appeals for interpretations or variances where it is alleged that there is an error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the Director of Community and Economic Development.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question because basically the point in question is that this is half the price to replace the building itself. And you said that it was an $80 per square foot figure to replace the existing structure.
Yes, the entire structure.
So I'm wondering, is that accurate for the South Lake Morton? It's a very historic district. It's the property is very desirable. So I'm wondering if that number is accurate. I'm not questioning. I'm just wondering where that determination was made and how it was made to come up with the 80.
Yeah, we did look at the construction type. Actually, it's a block structure. It was built in the late 40s. It's non-contributing. So in terms of the construction style, it's more common with your post-war, your ranches, and later. Block, drywall, that type of thing. It's not like your 1920s house with a crawl-space foundation, plaster and lath walls, and all those things that are very different type of construction. So based on what we saw in the photos, I mean, it looked like your typical post-war block house. It really was nothing substantial. I believe it had some maybe upgraded finishes, other things inside that the owner had before. I believe that the insurer addresses in their estimate there. But we believe that, for baseline cost was going to be accurate there based on other similar properties.
So for that amount of, okay, and I'm just trying to understand the foundation of where the replacement cost came in. Let me ask, for the Historic Preservation Board, would a home constructed for that amount of money, would that be something that they would approve? Well,
they don't look at the cost to build. I mean, they look at the design submitted. So, there are a couple options here. The owner didn't necessarily have to tear down and rebuild. They could convert the structure to a single-family home, which we did have interest from other potential buyers before Mr. Mutz purchased the property. That would be the other alternative there.
Okay. I'm trying to understand how the price was determined and if that is something that would be feasible as an alternative, since he is now requesting that the proposed amount to repair it is less than the amount to replace it, or 50%.
Yes.
Less than.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get clarification.
Does that $80 a square foot include the rewiring and all of the things necessary to bring it up to code?
That would be if you were building a new structure of comparable square footage. Again, the living area is only about 1,200 square feet here. So that would include just a sort of structure of average quality construction built to the current building code.
You had something to say? Go ahead.
I do. I didn't want to make an argument about the $80 a square foot, but since we're talking about it, I did also ask 3 contractors what it would cost, and all of them laughed when I said they estimated it could be done for $80 a square foot and said it's probably closer to $115 a square foot. I didn't want to make the argument because I still can restore it for less than it being counted as $80 a square foot, but all 3 contractors said it would be north of $115 a square foot to actually tear that building down and rebuild it. It also cost me more to buy it as a fire damaged building than it is to rebuild it ground up. And I understand some of that is the land as well, but
Yeah, the lot is quite large. It's a 90-foot lot. I know recently on Johnson Avenue, about 3 blocks away, a 50-foot lot sold for $100,000 there. So that neighborhood, there are very few, buildable lots available. So certainly if the house were torn down, the property itself does have quite a bit of value to it there. And I mean, just going on, the insurance just report it's an initial baseline estimate. There were other things in the building code. Had the previous owner been able to repair things he would have had to have made as part of the repairs, it would have added additional cost there, and I believe we covered those in the staff report. Just because of the age of the structure, things like the firewall, insulation, other stuff, things like that. So the final cost would have been probably 10 to 20% higher than what the insurance company estimated.
Mr. Miller, you have?
Yeah, I actually tend to agree with Mr. Mutz on the square footage price. I mean, if you look at the square footage price that he purchased the house for in that condition, it was $118,000 per foot. So again, I've actually renovated some houses, and $80 a square foot, in my opinion, is nowhere near reasonable. And then so if we looked at it from the legal perspective, and you did $100, or meet in the middle somewhere, all of a sudden his property value is higher, and you capture even the $77,000 original estimate that would be the 50% or below that would meet that requirement. In my opinion, though, still comes down to in a duplex type area that's not standard or non-conforming, legal or not. Do we have anybody in the community that's a neighbor that would be just adamantly opposed to having the duplex still there? Legally, I would say that I could make an argument, but it still comes down. We're still a community here.
yeah.
So.
The neighbors did receive a letter saying that they could send something in to complain. I actually went across the street and talked with the neighbors who live across the street, and they said they loved having a duplex there, and they've had great renters, and said if I keep it a duplex, they were like, bring us some good renters. Mm-hmm. They missed the people who lived in the house. Those people would be welcome to come back if we can restore it. But yeah, then the only other point I wanted to make, which I kind of already did make, the owner did, whether blatantly or not, market the property incorrectly. And I am also a realtor. When you make the public remarks of the property, you typically have the person who owns the property sign off on those public remarks. So them listing it, and I do think I have a quote in here, the owner listing it and saying that it could be kept a duplex, but it could also be converted to a single-family home is, at the very least, very misleading.
don't disagree with you, but it seems like, is this an email from Matt?
Yes, I wanted to bring your attention, we did receive an email from Liz and Wes Craven. They live at 834 Cumberland Street. That's 2 houses down at the corner of Park Hill and Cumberland. And she is opposed to this. She was following this several months back, what was going on here. And a lot of people that live in that neighborhood, there are older duplexes, some of them going back decades. Some of them are not maintained very well, or their tenants are not very carefully vetted. So from her perception, if the threshold has been met, she would prefer to be restored back to a single-family home. She thinks it would be healthier for the neighborhood, than a duplex rental property.
Yeah, I'm also not I also live in the neighborhood, so I have much more motivation than some random person who lives in some random place to make the neighborhood look nice and care for the property, because it is my neighborhood and I feel proud for my neighborhood.
Make a motion.
Okay, we'll go forward with our recommendation. Again, you have a copy of all the items that were discussed, including the adjuster's report. That was produced by a professional licensed claim adjuster for the insurance company. It provides a complete line-by-line estimate for the full cost to repair and restore the structure to its pre-fire condition. Since the insurance companies inherently have an interest in avoiding overpayment for claims, staff basically determined to be a fair and unbiased estimate for the baseline cost to repair the structure to its pre-fire condition. As previously mentioned, as a level 3 operation under the Florida Building Code, additional costs would have been likely incurred at the time of permitting had the previous owner been able to restore it as a duplex. And these include things like rewiring the entire structure, wall insulation, firewall, HVAC ductwork, window replacement, location of the washer and dryer outside, things that were not up to code that would have to have been met for compliance issues before a permit would have been issued. So we believe the final cost would have been higher than what the insurance company estimated. So while no estimate was provided for those costs, they would have been identified at the time of permitting and incurred by the owner. He could have recovered those from the insurance company through a supplemental claim for those costs. The estimate provided by the remodeling contractor for the applicant, Quality Renovation and Construction, is not comparable in scope or detail, and it's about a half-page estimate. It doesn't really provide any line-by-line costs for what the work was, and even indication that it's comparable quality materials to what was there previously. More importantly, it was also produced more than 8 months after the fire for a new owner. He didn't even know what the pre-fire condition was. He bought the property after the interior demolition work and mitigation work had already been completed by a different contractor. As such, it's not an accurate and comprehensive estimate as to what it would cost to restore the structure back to its pre-fire condition.
So when you purchased the property, you were not aware that, about the code and that it had been zoned for single-family use? You were not aware that?
No, I was not aware of that. Also, in the private realtor remarks, which only realtors, of which I'm one, can read, the property was actually described as a duplex. So they also described it as a duplex in that. But I did find I was walking around my neighborhood and passed the property and randomly went back to my house and looked up the property and felt confused about why it was listed for so little, and then went and looked at it really quickly, called the realtor, and she was like, "We're going to accept an offer. We've got tons of people who want to make this a duplex, and we're going to accept an offer today." So I very quickly put in an offer and won it, let my money go hard, was on the phone with the realtor, and then she told me about the city's previous determination after that. But also cost me a lot more money to convert it to a single family home, because then you'd have to go take the side that doesn't have damage and match it to the other side and merge the walls together and redo all the HVAC work, and which is, to me, if we're gonna only use the determination of one insurance claim person and say that that's the cost to restore it, I do feel like we shouldn't just pick a random number like $80 a square foot and decide that that's the cost to rebuild it. If we're gonna trust somebody in the industry, or say that we're trusting somebody in the industry for the restoration cost, it does feel like we should find somebody from the industry and say, this is the real cost to tear this entire structure down and rebuild it, and not just pick $80 a square foot. And as he said, I do agree that there's no way it would be $80 a square foot, and would very well even be over that 50% threshold at the insurance adjuster's cost. And I'm not trying to argue to take away the money that was already spent, that $31,000 by True Builders. Even though I talked to the True Builders person on the phone, and she apologized to me for the amount of money they spent and said she'd love to work with me in the future on houses, and that it wouldn't cost quite that much money. They can run their company however they want. I do think insurance remediation is an industry that you can make some good money on. So I'm not trying to argue against taking away that $31,000. We can just still restore it for under the city's $80 a square foot value for that $26,000. I've worked with this contractor on 3 different houses. You're more than welcome to go take a look at the last house that he just finished for me, and his quote is not an exaggeration or an underestimate. We will restore it. Even from those pictures, it'll look nicer than, the pictures had a lot of smoke damage. If you look past the smoke damage, it'll look nicer than what was already in that house by the time that we're finished with it, assuming we get to finish it.
Matt, I have a question. Since we are talking about estimates that are provided, number one, by an insurance company, and number two, that were provided by you, would it be possible for us to get more estimates and do,
Well, what's changed is the amount of time that's passed. We're no looking at the condition that the structure was right after the fire. That would have been the time to get multiple estimates.
Gotcha.
So that work has already been performed. And the only documentation you have of that pre-fire condition is the adjuster's report.
Correct.
Which had, I don't believe it had any of the photos, but as you saw from the fire department, the damage was quite extensive there, but they did go through a line-by-line estimate there. So the owner of record at that time, he did not contest our determination. He was the one, in our opinion, that was would have been most harmed by this decision, and he accepted it and decided to sell the property. So that situation is no longer the case here. And more importantly, he did so in good faith with the understanding that that decision was final and that no subsequent buyers would be allowed to restore it as a duplex. And that's what we were very uncomfortable with, because there were multiple potential buyers. People looked at the property. I spoke to several myself and told them the issue. So we do not agree that the status was not made clear. And even if it wasn't, that would be a private civil matter between the buyer and the previous owner and the listing agent, and that's outside your purview. So if it was misrepresented, we're sorry, but that's irrelevant as far as what we're looking at today.
Correct, and I'm not questioning that. I know that would definitely be something that you would have to take up in a civil suit. My question was just looking at if we're comparing numbers, if we could do that. But as you say,
Have a more detailed estimate of the repairs needed now.
by your contractor or by another.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically, if the property wasn't insured, for example, we as an alternative, we would have asked for 3 detailed estimates from 3 different contractors and probably averaged them all together there. But we would have expected a comparable amount of detail to what you saw in the adjuster's report. So something that was comprehensive and included all the costs, not just a simple, remodeling after a lot of the dirty work has already been done there. So that's what we would have looked for. And so if it had not been insured, that would have been a possibility, but the property was insured. And in our experience, the adjuster's report it's going to be non-biased. They're not going to pay more than they have to. I mean, they're inherently, their interest is in, paying what is owed to the insured, but they're not in the business of just giving out money.
No, and I agree with that, but I do think that they, in their best interest, underestimate the value of certain items. I've experienced dealing with an insurance company after fire damage. Would it be possible for him to come back, for Mr. Metz to come back with a more detailed estimate? For the repairs?
I mean, he could, but I think it's true at this point, knowing that he bought as an investment, I mean, he has a conflict of interest, but, and seeing that the price comes back to hit that target number. And so I think at this point, I think that ship has probably sailed.
I make a motion, we vote.
Okay. So what is your motion?
Can you please clarify your motion? Because I think staff is recommending a denial of the
No, big deal.
request. So just keep that in mind, what you're voting for, and also that it will require, whatever motion you make will require 5 affirmative votes in order to pass, because that's how the bylaws of the ZBA, the zoning board, is formulated. So just be very clear in your motion what you're making a motion for.
I make a motion that we vote against the proposed petition that was presented to the board on the variance.
So are you saying you want to make a motion to approve staff's
I
recommendation?
said against.
So you're denying?
Against staff's recommendation.
Denying.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, we're denying the staff's recommendation?
Denying the appeal, or you?
This gentleman's recommendation denying the request.
Okay, so denying his appeal.
Yes.
Okay. And so that would be a favorable request for staff.
Correct.
Because staff is recommending denial, so
Correct.
you're approving staff's recommendation.
Correct.
Okay.
So we have a motion?
Okay, I don't want to be clear, because in respect to what you're wanting to do and to make the changes, and in respect to what the director, what the staff has recommended, just to be clear, the 3 that's listed, that's the reason as to why they're totally denying it. So, and I like your comment about getting more detailed information. And to me, I think that makes perfect sense, because it's not going against, what the plan is and what the vision is, because I understand it and I think is a great idea. But I also think what you said, more detailed, and I don't think that should be anything that should be overlooked. And that's actually, it's in favor of,
Correct.
so that's just my take on it. If we can just get more details, I think.
I tend to agree. I feel like, I know that you said that ship has sailed, but I feel like there's not enough information to make a fair decision. And I feel like if we make this decision, we close this door completely.
I think if you do that, I think you require multiple contractors, and I think the issue is the type of detail and scope that would be comparable to the adjuster's report. Any licensed, respectable contractor, they're going to charge for that service. They're not going to do it for free. It's quite a bit of work.
Correct, I understand.
To come up like that. And it would also require some understanding of what was there before. And so because all that demolition work has already been done, it's not going to be an accurate picture of what would have been 9 months ago, for example.
Okay.
So right now we have a motion on the floor. We need to ask if there's a second. Otherwise, that motion would die.
Second.
Second, okay.
So we have a motion and a second to deny the appeal. So I'll go ahead and put it to a vote. Mr. Miller?
I'm going to disapprove of that. I do not agree that we deny the appeal.
Okay. Ms. Mayweather?
The denial, yeah, I'll disapprove on the denial.
Okay. Mr. Rashke?
Vote yes for the motion.
Vote yes on the motion.
Yes.
You vote yes?
Yes.
I vote yes. Boy, that's down to me.
So we don't have 5, we have 2, so that wouldn't pass.
Right.
We need 5 affirmative.
We need 5 for approval.
5 for approval.
Okay.
So where does it leave this gentleman?
Is there another motion?
I make a motion that we continue and that we,
You can't make the motion.
I can't make the motion.
Right.
Right.
To
That's what I
entertain a
thought.
motion. And if I can make a suggestion too, because there's been some discussion about getting additional information, you may want to let Mr. Mutz know in terms of what your expectation is. If you're asking to continue this and for him to provide more, what the board would be looking for. So, because we could go down the road
Correct.
over and over again on
Correct.
this, So
I
just
agree.
get some direction to him about what you would expect to see if he comes back before the board.
You have closed on the property,
I closed on it, yes.
so the property is yours.
It is already mine, yes.
Okay.
So I was, my denial on just the staff actually set that one on the top that's actually doable. It's not anything that can't be done, and that's just what I'm looking at. It's not that, the applicant hasn't provided any documentation or evidence which substantially demonstrates the estimate provided by the adjuster. So to me, that's almost asking, can you do it?
I mean, I don't know the adjuster, and I'm not necessarily saying what he said is inaccurate or not, because I'm not an insurance adjuster. My argument is that I can, and I'm more than happy to have more than one contractor give a bid on the property, that I can still restore it back, including the old person, the previous cost I already spent, for under what the city would determine it to not be destroyed, is what my argument is. Secondly, I do think if we're going to go to an outside party to get what costs are going to be, what cost would have to pay to restore it, we should also go to an outside party to say this would be the cost to rebuild it, because it does seem unfair to me that the city can say it'll only be $130,000 to restore this, but then they ask somebody else, what's the cost to restore this? So to me, I think if we're going to go down the road of I need to go get some more quotes, I also think we should go down the road of having somebody who is not a city employee say this would be the cost to rebuild this 1,700, 1,600 square foot home in the Lake Morton Historic District, so that we can also compare the determination that $80 a square foot. And I think if we do that, you would find that even this insurance adjuster's claims would be under 50%, because I think it would be well over $100, $115 a square foot to completely rebuild the building. So even if we went in that direction and we said, okay, if we're going to rely on an outside adjuster's perspective of what it would cost to bring this back, to restore it back to what it was before the fire, we should also look at an outside person's perspective on the cost to tear the entire structure down and rebuild the entire structure, because to me it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to go to one side and say, over here we'll look at somebody from the outside, over here we're going to pick a number of what we think it would cost to rebuild an entire home.
But I thought the real issue here is the cost to restore this as a duplex. And if the cost to do that is greater than 50% of rebuilding it, not necessarily as a single-family home.
Right.
But just, so I think we're kind of going far afield here. And one of the issues I've got is you've got a number, but there's no detail in that the way there's detail in the adjuster's report. Now, I recognize that some of his detail is to tear out the stuff that's destroyed and get it to the point that you can rebuild it. So I think we're kind of muddling the waters here.
Yeah, he already did that.
We haven't seen it.
Yeah, the house has already been, all that stuff has already been taken out.
I'm not talking about that. You're talking about the fact that you can bring it back to code
Right.
as a duplex for some $26,000.
Yeah, I can have my contractor go and line item all of it. We work
I
on
think
it.
that's what she's talking
Yeah.
about.
That's what we need. So what the issue is, the city's saying with an adjustment, no chance you exceed the 50%. You're saying, absolutely, I can be underneath that 50% threshold. I think what we're saying is,
Show
us.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if you want, I can just rebuild it and bring in all the costs and evaluate it that way because I feel that confident in it.
But that's what it comes down to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it comes down to, there's a 50% mark, there's an insurance adjuster that says, no chance. You're saying, I absolutely can. We just need some detail behind exactly
Yeah,
how
I
you're
can
going
have
to do
the
that.
contractor go and detail out. That's also still under, so his bid, the city had made some other remarks for some things that needed to be added. His bid, it does include that, but I can have him go do line items.
Well, but if it's got to come up to code, then he's
Yeah,
got to
right.
include those.
Yeah.
Right.
So he can most definitely break everything out to show what all those costs include. We work on projects together quite a bit, and that's just the way that he usually does quotes. And I understand it doesn't help you, but I understand everything he's talking about in his 2 pages. So he had 2 different quotes that I think were provided to you for different aspects of it. But I can have him go and break it all out to make it more clear, yes.
I think my concern is if we go this route again, I think you should have more than one contractor. I'd say a minimum of 3.
Yes.
I agree. I think that we should also have a third party that is not your contractor, that is somebody who is kind of a neutral party to provide an estimate. And I do agree with you on re-examining the cost to rebuild,
Yeah.
because that is where we're determining the 50%
Right.
mark.
Just for a point of clarification on
Correct.
that, Matthew, though, it's the city's standard practice to make that determination on the, so it wasn't just selected for this particular property, that's how it's done, correct? I'm just trying to get
Yes,
clarification.
when they're assessing permits for new construction for the NOCs, they have to file. That's the value they use there. I mean, it's a very conservative estimate. Obviously, if we're a fancy custom home, it would be a lot more expensive here.
Sure.
But given this was a rental property and average quality construction, we didn't think it was that far out of line there.
So the city isn't really doing anything that's outside the normal scope and course of what they do, just for the
Okay,
board's
so that is
understanding.
their standard baseline?
Right,
Okay.
correct.
So it wasn't, all right, it wasn't
That's
specific
what
to this.
that's why I wanted to make Matthew clarify that, so you understand that.
Yes, that does make a difference.
And that doesn't reflect, I mean, the market value of the property, which would include also the land itself. I mean, that's entirely separate from
Correct.
what it would cost
This is just strictly replacing the
Yeah.
structure
The
itself.
current structure.
But would he be still subject to the same requirements if he was converting the property to a single-family home? In other words, convert it to a single family?
Well, that would,
What-
if the appeal were denied, that would be his only option, would be to restore it back to a single-family home.
That would cost a lot more money than what I'm requesting, if that is the route that we go.
I think all he has to do is meet code.
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is just restore the part that had caught on fire. If it's denied, then I do have to go restore it to a single-family home, and that will cost a substantial greater amount of money to me. Not that this, I mean, I'm not saying you don't care about that. That's what I would get for finishing purchasing a property because I didn't want to lose $6,000 when I was told late in the game that the city had already made a decision. Yeah, I mean, we can go the route of getting more information. I still, as a citizen, don't necessarily feel it's fair to have the city determine it's $80 a square foot and then have somebody else say this is what it costs to rebuild, because it's strange that we have to listen to somebody else for this is the cost to restore it, but we can say exactly what it costs to build it. But that being said, I can have my contractor break it out and talk to some other contractors to bid the work out and come back, if that's the route you guys would prefer to go.
Wouldn't it be his request to ask for an extension?
He can certainly, or one of the board members can make a motion to continue this to request some additional information from the applicant. Or the applicant certainly can request that before the board, but the board would still need to make a motion.
And again, the last two, I think that's beyond your control, you know what I'm saying? And that's something but I just think that one, that's something you can control, or, you know what I'm saying, be able to provide.
Yeah.
Because I really, really think it's a wonderful thing. You're providing homes for families, not just one family, but two families.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful idea. It's just that, okay, this is what one out of three, this is what I can do, so let me just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people who want to live in the community, and it helped me care about old homes, and it will help them care about old homes and want to keep the culture alive. That being said, if what you guys need from me to lean favorably towards my request is some other bids from contractors showing that I can meet the city's determination before they denied the legal non-conforming duplex, I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, I think they almost need to be blind. They don't need to be advised that this is trying to hit a target. I mean, that's what concerns me, is that if they're told that, this is what we're looking for, that it's going to skew the estimates there. So I'm not sure how you do that, ensure that the bids are done impartially, but obviously whoever would win the bid has an interest in maybe doing that. So that would be my other consideration.
Right. I mean, the contractors aren't going to lose money to make it so that I can build a building. And then that would still go back to, if they're willing to do it for the amount of money that they bid, then that means the duplex could be restored for under the cost.
How much time do you think you're going to need for it to supply the estimates to the board?
When's the next time you guys meet?
April 6th.
I will have it by April 6th.
We would need it before then because we have to put it.
I mean, I can get it done before then. I can call contractors and ask them to come out and walk through with them and ask them to bid it.
I mean, if you want something comparable in scope to the adjuster's report, that's going to take probably more time than that. You really almost want to have them go back and look at what the condition of the structure was before the fire.
Well,
and go from there.
To me, it doesn't. Maybe you can provide some more clarity. I don't know why we'd have to look at the condition before the fire. I'm going to put nice things into the home.
Well, for example, I think the structure had wood floors. So
the wood floors are actually still fine in the structure.
Yeah.
They don't have to be taken out. They look great, actually. But I can bring photos of where the structure is today at the time I bought it, and then also which would show everything that the previous contractor had already done, and then have line items from multiple contractors that
Matt,
would bring it back.
Would the estimate have to include the $31,000 that was already spent?
That's already been spent. So
Correct. But I'm saying, if we're looking at the 50%, so that $31,000 would have to be part of that 50%, correct?
That would count towards,
Yeah, I think you would have to consider that because
Correct.
that would be unfair.
Right.
Yeah, that's already been spent. I'm not trying to argue to take that
Right.
away. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to show it.
Right.
No, my argument is that I can still do it despite the 50% that has been spent.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I'm more than happy to forward the 50% that was spent was sent to me by True Builders. I'm happy to forward the email from True Builders to somebody if they want. But I did, I think, provide the invoice that they had been paid for that amount.
May I revise
Okay, if-
my motion?
Yeah, I don't believe there's any motions on the floor at this time.
If we were to do this, who is going to make the determination of what the qualifications and standards would be for this itemized list so that it would be apples to apples and would be a comparable estimate? Would that be the city? Would the city then take?
No, because now the board, you as the board are sitting in the role of staff because this is an appeal that the applicant has brought forward to the board. So basically,
would
you
have
need to, you
We
need
would
to
have to
make
make
that
the
decision
recommendation.
and do that consideration. The city wouldn't go through and, I mean, the city is going to review it and make a recommendation again based on what they see as well, whether that changes or not. But it would be up to the board to make that determination based on what the applicant's saying and what other new evidence and line iteming estimates that he brings forward.
Okay, I would like to revise my motion. I'd like to make a motion that Mr. Muntz have up to 2 months to provide this board with 3 bids on the subject property, not to exceed the 50% per his request.
And with specificity,
And with what?
specificity in the items.
And with specificity?
Yes.
An itemized listing of expenses, not just it's going to cost this. Presented to the board within 2 months for reconsideration and review.
So we're basically continuing.
For continuing, yes.
Yeah.
Not to exceed 2 months.
Sounds great to me. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk or somebody's supposed to say.
We have a
second.
motion. Do we have a second?
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Approve?
You want a second? You second it? All right. We have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and put it to the vote. Mr. Miller?
Approve.
Ms. Mayweather?
Approve.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Yes.
And Ms. Cruz? And Ms. Konishi, yes. So we will see you in 2 months.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful week.
You too.
All right. Do we have any new business? Do we have anything continuing that we need to discuss from previous? No? All right, we're good. Then we are adjourned.